Kyle Busch thought the controversy was over. NASCAR apparently disagrees. Just days after officials decided not to penalize Kyle Busch for his late race incident with John Hunter Nemechek in Texas, the sanctioning body is reopening discussions behind closed doors. And now fans across the garage are asking the same question: did NASCAR quietly let one of its biggest stars escape punishment? Because the deeper this situation gets, the harder it becomes to ignore the optics. The contact itself looked aggressive, the replay looked intentional, and the reaction online has been brutal. But somehow, Busch walked away without losing points, without a fine, and without a suspension warning. Now, NASCAR officials are calling both drivers in for additional conversations ahead of Watkins Glen. And while the league insists this is not a disciplinary hearing, the timing alone has reignited the entire debate. Here's what really matters. Late in the Texas race, Busch tried forcing his way underneath John Hunter Nemechek during a battle for position. The two cars made initial contact, but what happened next is what triggered the controversy. Busch's car drifted hard into Nemechek's door, sending the 42 car into the wall. Both drivers lost spots. Both were furious afterward, and instantly fans started comparing it to previous intentional wreck penalties NASCAR handed out in recent years. What made the backlash even louder was the inconsistency argument. Preece got hit with a 25-point penalty for wrecking Gibbs in a separate incident. Denny Hamlin was penalized in 2023 for intentionally spinning Chastain. But Kyle Busch? Nothing, at least officially. Now NASCAR says it still plans to speak with Busch, Childress Racing, and Nemechek directly. Cup Series director Moran tried calming the situation down by explaining the conversations are more about preventing future escalation than handing out punishment. But let's be honest here, fans don't care about the wording. The second NASCAR reopened discussions, the entire controversy came roaring back. And honestly, this situation exposes one of the biggest problems NASCAR keeps battling in modern officiating: intent. How do you truly prove a driver meant to wreck somebody? That's where this story gets complicated. According to NASCAR executive Mike Forde, the telemetry and steering data from Busch's car didn't conclusively show deliberate contact. Officials reportedly reviewed the SMT data and noticed Busch was turning hard left while the car continued driving straight. That suggests the steering may have been damaged after the initial contact. In other words, NASCAR believes there's a legitimate possibility Busch simply lost control because of damage. And if there's uncertainty, NASCAR historically avoids issuing major penalties. That's important because penalties tied to driver intent are some of the most controversial decisions the sport can make. You can't suspend or dock points based purely on fan reaction. You need evidence. You need telemetry. You need radio communication. And according to NASCAR, Busch's radio never showed clear malicious intent either. Compare that to Preece. Officials reportedly felt Preece's frustration toward Gibbs was obvious before the wreck even happened. The data supported it, the emotions supported it, the sequence supported it. That combination pushed NASCAR toward punishment. But with Busch, officials apparently felt they didn't have enough certainty to cross that line. Still, that explanation hasn't satisfied a huge portion of the NASCAR community, because visually, the incident looked bad. Really bad. And perception matters in motorsports almost as much as reality, especially when the driver involved is Kyle Busch. That's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Busch carries a reputation that changes how every incident gets viewed. He's one of the most aggressive drivers of his generation. He races emotionally. He races physically. And throughout his career, he's never been afraid to move people out of the way. So when fans saw that replay from Texas, many immediately assumed intent before NASCAR even reviewed the data. That reputation works against him in moments like this. But there's another side to this story that deserves attention too. Kyle Busch desperately needed a clean finish. Childress Racing has struggled for consistency this season, and Busch was actually putting together one of his stronger runs of the year before the incident unraveled everything. He was battling near the top 15. The car showed speed. Momentum finally seemed to be building. Then suddenly, everything collapsed in a few seconds. Instead of leading Texas with positive momentum heading toward Watkins Glen, Busch left with controversy following him again. And strategically, this creates an awkward situation for NASCAR moving forward, because now officials are trapped between two dangerous outcomes. If they stay consistent with their current ruling, critics will accuse them of protecting a superstar driver. But if they suddenly change direction after public backlash, they risk looking reactionary and weak. Neither option is ideal. That's why these upcoming meetings matter more than NASCAR probably wants to admit. Even if no punishment comes from them, officials are clearly trying to prevent this situation from escalating deeper into the season because playoff pressure changes everything. Aggressive driving becomes more emotional, retaliation risks increase, and drivers start remembering previous incidents when championship spots are on the line. That's exactly the kind of environment NASCAR wants to avoid, especially with a veteran like Busch, whose frustration level has already been visible multiple times this year. Now, the big question becomes, does this actually change how Busch races going forward? That's where things get really interesting. Kyle Busch has built his Hall of Fame career by refusing to back down. It'll suddenly become passive at this stage of your career. But at the same time, NASCAR clearly has its eye on him now, and drivers know when officials are watching closely. That awareness alone can subtly change decision-making during late race battles, especially at a place like Watkins Glen, where aggressive moves in braking zones can easily trigger another controversy. And if Busch gets involved in another incident soon after this meeting, the pressure on NASCAR will explode, because then the conversation won't just be about one Texas wreck anymore. It'll become about accountability. Now let's talk fan reaction, because this debate has completely split the NASCAR community. One side believes NASCAR got this exactly right. Their argument is simple. If the data doesn't prove intent, you cannot hand out major penalties based on assumptions. That's fair. But the other side sees this as another example of inconsistency in officiating. They look at previous penalties handed to other drivers and ask why Busch received the benefit of the doubt when others didn't. And honestly, that frustration is understandable too, because consistency is everything in sports officiating. The second fans stop understanding where the line is, controversy takes over every single incident. That's where NASCAR finds itself right now. Best case scenario, these meetings calm tensions down, Busch moves past the controversy, and NASCAR avoids another major officiating headache entering the playoff stretch. Worst case scenario, another aggressive incident happens. Fans accuse NASCAR of using controlled driver discipline, and the entire penalty system gets dragged back into the spotlight all over again. And considering how emotional this season has already become, that possibility feels very real. One thing is certain though, Kyle Busch may have avoided punishment in Texas, but this story clearly isn't finished yet. So now the question is, did NASCAR make the correct call by trusting the data, or did Kyle Busch simply benefit from superstar treatment? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep NASCAR analysis and breaking stories every week, subscribe to SportsWire USA.